Going back to impeaching the President of the United States, we first had to decide, what do high crimes and misdemeanors mean? Is it a criminal act? Can it be less than a criminal act? Can it be, what's a misdemeanor? How do we judge that? So we had to go back into history. Beyond simply the impeachment of Andrew Johnson, we had to go back into English history. And that's where I started reading some of the decisions in English history. And a quote that I came across, very important to me. It said, impeachment is like Goliath's sword, to be removed from the temple or the sheath on great occasions only. That's how important it was to talk about impeachment only on great occasions, because you are undertaking to overrule potentially the vote of millions and millions of the American people. It had to be something truly grave, a threat to our system.
The message always was the public has to feel this is a fair undertaking. Didn't matter if you agreed or didn't agree, be a Republican or Democrat, you had to think it was a fair undertaking.
One thing I've learned from the impeachment process, you must be bipartisan. You must have a bipartisan consensus in that committee. If it's simply a majority, you can pass it, but it's meaningless. It will not go to the Senate. It won't have any meaning. So you take Goliath's sword and you turn it into a butter knife. It doesn't mean anything unless you have people willing to say, yes, that is unacceptable.
Part of what was happening during that Nixon process was also a conversation about how do we expect presidents to use their powers? What counts as an abuse of power for the presidents? What's appropriate behavior by a sitting president going forward, not just relative to the past?
Or recognized that in order to do something hard, which was impeachment, the country hadn't done it for 100 years, you'd have to overwhelm folks with the enormity of President Nixon's crimes and abuses of power.
We have to remember what this country is supposed to be about, that we hold everybody, presidents especially, to that rule of law. You're acting as a fiduciary, you're a trustee, and we're going to make sure you conduct yourself as a trustee.
Impeachment is an early form of American duty, and this generation attacked and approached that duty the way the founders wanted them to. So the question is whether we are ever going to be capable of that kind of commitment to the ideals that made us the great nation we are.
The state of impeachment today is as a partisan tit-for-tat exercise that's almost become a de rigueur part of our polarized political environment. It's a far stretch from what we saw in 1974. And I think for those of us who are worried about presidential aggrandizement and abuse of power, it sort of seems like the energy has been sapped from this tool in a way that's very concerning.
One of the good aspects, rare aspects of the failures of the impeachment process in the Trump era is that it has reawakened people to the possibility that there might be a good notion of political that needs to be recovered, that serious abuses of office really need this, this solution, became more palpable when the court decided that the disqualification aspects of the Constitution wouldn't be enforced, that it had to be either an election or an impeachment and conviction.
We need to be thinking about what are the strategic objectives by which we're pursuing this particular constitutional tool? What are we trying to accomplish by going through this process? What decisions do we have to make then as we go through that process in order to make it most likely we're going to achieve those objectives down the road? And what other tools do we have available to us that may be as effective or maybe even more effective at addressing the problem that we have before us?